Let's go segment 2. Let's do What a Boone. And this is a look back at the impact of Boone Pickens. Cedric, a Texas guy, a Texas oilman, born in Oklahoma but lived in Texas. You got to know him over the years. The Longhorns were clearly a team that he, as an Oklahoma State fan, looked to get his university on some sort of level playing field with all the donations he made. But he was no stranger in your neck of the woods in Austin, that's for sure.
What a big loss for not only for the college football community and the business community at large, but also for people in our region. Jen, T. Boone Pickens was a monolithic figure in our lives. He was the Phil Knight of Oklahoma State. Don't get it twisted. He put Oklahoma State on the map with countless donations, facility upgrades, coaching upgrades. He brought the program, he helped bring it back to relevancy after Barry Sanders, after Thurman Thomas. And I for one, just always got a big kick out of it. We would go to Stillwater and he'd show up and so he'd send someone over. Mr. Pickens would like for you guys to come over to his suite. And we'd chat with him at halftime. And he loved to shoot the bull. He was a straight shooter. I do know this, Jen, as far as about my personal connection with him. Kirk Bowles and I started this podcast on Second Thought on Hook'em.com a couple of years ago. And we had T-Boone in a phone call from, I guess it was at episode 28. And so he starts talking and Kirk goes, well, yeah, what's going on with Gundy? He goes, oh, Mike doesn't return my calls. We don't really have a relationship. And I know that turned the whole state of Oklahoma on its ear. B. Trammell and the crew had to get busy that day.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the thing about T-Boone with what you said is absolutely right. A straight shooter. And lots of times that came across as just hilarious to those of us who were listening. He wasn't trying to be funny, and yet he was so honest in his assessment and the things that he said. Obviously he, being in business in the state of Texas, had a lot of friends who were UT fans, UT alum, boosters, those sorts of things. He was always wanting to try to get his alma mater up to that level. And I think he was very pleased with being able to see those UT friends and talk about Oklahoma State's wins against them in football. That was a big deal. But on the flip side, he was also not shy about talking about Oklahoma State's record in recent years against Oklahoma. Even as they had started to beat Texas on a regular basis, they were not beating Oklahoma on a regular basis, only a couple wins over the last decade plus. So definitely a bone of contention for T. Boone Pickens that they did not do better against Oklahoma regularly. But Cedric, I think that we can safely say, while he did so much for Oklahoma State, I think that had an impact on the Big 12 in general. I mean, you see Oklahoma State being a regular contender at a time when Texas had fallen back. Oklahoma State was able to step into that void. And now as Texas returns to, that contender type of status, Oklahoma State's still there, still very much a team that people will look at and say, wonder if the Cowboys are going to play for a Big 12 championship again. I think that has helped to change the way the Big 12 looks, but also teams that maybe down the pecking order are saying, hey, we're going to go out and build stadiums, we're going to do these sorts of things, see what it can do for our program. I think we've seen a lot of sort of that tide raising all boats, and I think one of the parts of that tide that was pretty significant was Boone Pickens.
You can't win in big time athletics without money now, Jen. Everybody has players, but if you want to get the elite players and the elite coaches and build elite facilities and be elite in the marketing department, you got to have a fat cat with fat money and willing to break bread to the right people. I'm telling you, Texas had two guys, several. Joe Jamel was one, the big-time lawyer from Houston who's passed, and Frank Denius, a military veteran who's also many times a millionaire, maybe a billionaire. Those men were very, very generous with their money and their time. And if you're going to compete on a national level, and Oklahoma State wanted to be that contender, they wanted to rise up the ranks of the Big 12 and join Texas and Oklahoma, they had to have a guy willing to not only support as far as emotional support and love for that school, but also provide the monetary support that's very much needed to compete in this marketplace.
Yeah, and even as we talk about, the sort of the ripples of what was done at Oklahoma State, I don't think we are saying in any form or fashion that the biggest impact, it was in Stillwater. It was on Oklahoma State, a stadium that had really become antiquated and was in serious need of repair, and it mirrored the program. The program needed the infusion that Boone Pickens gave them. His initial giant gift of $165 million was really almost all football. That big gift, he'd given about $100 million prior to that, but that one was the football. We're going to get this turned around, and it has been significant. I think that it was the money, but it was also Boone's attitude. He talked about winning championships, and they won a Big 12 championship. They came real close to playing back in the BCS days for the national championship in 2011. So, he talked about things that maybe Oklahoma State fans, somewhere deep in the recesses of their heart and their mind, they might have thought, one day I'd like to see this. But he gave voice to those things and really said, we can do this as Oklahoma State. And so I think there was great power in that. I think that will continue to carry on. Obviously, his financial gifts, they will continue to pay dividends to the school. But that attitude, I think, was something that Oklahoma State fans could really grab onto and feel good about. They always had the pride, but I think to really see that in action and hear that from Boone Pickens was a really, really big deal.